So the next thing to be done is to now rig the legs. For today, I'm not going to bother putting geometry on these legs. You would use the same technique that you would use here if you wanted a single piece of geometry that you could skin to the leg. If you had separate segments that weren't connected, then you could just parent them, but I'll leave that up to you. Instead, I want to spend a little more time on the rigging process here. So let me find leg A here. So that's this one. I guess. Oh, surprised. It's leg A. Thought this was leg A. Okay, well, it doesn't really matter. So now if we want to move these legs, we talked about this a couple times already, this is using forward kinematics, right? So if we want to rotate these legs, we have to select each joint and move them to make any sort of animation. But what we really want is to be able to grab the foot and move it and have the knee and the hip bend. So we're going to use inverse kinematics like we did before. So to do that, we just go into the skeleton menu set, and then we're going to create an IK handle. I'm just going to open up the options here. There are two types of IK that you can make. One is called a single chain solver, and one is called a rotate plane solver. Single chain is the standard one. Rotate plane allows twist functionality, so you can control. So if I were to do my hip, and I use rotate plane, then it would give me some functionality to move my hip around this way, to rotate sort of around the long axis of my femur. The single chain doesn't have that. So in this case, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use single chain. And just leave all the settings as before. And we'll just go from hip, making sure I'm selecting the right one, to ankle. And we'll create an IK handle that allows us now to move the leg like this. So I didn't go to the toe because I want that toe to be sort of a constant little platform. So we're just going from hip to ankle. Yeah.
Did you have the leg selected and then you pressed?
No, you don't. So there are two things in Maya. There are tools and then there are functions that you execute. If it's a function, you have to have something selected first. If it's a tool, you select the tool and use the tool to select things. And this is a tool, so you don't have to have anything selected first. But here, so this was leg B, and so it created a new IK handle here. So I'm just going to rename this before I go on, and I'll just call this IK B, so I know which one it is. And then I'll go through and continue to do that. So if I just hit Y again, so G performs the last function that you just did, or last action. Y relaunches the last tool you had active. So I'm just going to go around and do each of these. So this was leg C, so I'll call this IKC. IKD. E, and then this last one must be A. Oh no, that was E. Oops, I got off track here. So this was leg B. That IK is correct. This is leg C. That IK is correct. This is leg D. E. This one is F for some reason. This one is E. Okay, so select Y. Again, it just pays to organize as you go along, otherwise things get out of hand quickly. So this should be leg A. Yeah, so that's IKA. So now each one of these legs I can move easily, control their movements. Okay, so now we're almost there. We've got an object with legs that are rigged so we can move them. But now if we select the root joint now and pull it down, everything moves with it. The legs don't stay locked in place, like the feet don't stay on the ground. Now you can make that happen by keyframing this IK. So if I just select its translate attributes and set a key, oops, let's try that again. Okay, Maya. So now if I select the root and move it up and down, you can see that leg tries to stay in place. But keyframing is not really the way we want to go with this. Now I think, I'm not sure, I think I want to freeze the transformations of these IKs. No, I do not. Do not do that. This is not good. So what we're going to do instead is create a little reverse foot that will be the thing we control these legs with. So I'll start over here because this one is on the center of the grid lines here, so it's easy to locate. If I look at it in this view here, so this is my front view. And what I'm going to do is just create a little reverse chain that matches this one, but is going in the opposite direction. So now it's going from the top down to the bottom. I'm going to create a new joint system, so create joints again, and then just snap right out here beside it, X, holding down X, and then again. So it's the same size joint system, but it's going up instead of down. And we're also going to create another IK. We're going to do this for each foot, if I'm remembering this correctly. We want to make a new IK that just goes from the ankle to the toe. This is on our original leg, not the reverse foot over here, but the original leg. So if I just go into my IK tool again, and go from here to here, now I've got a new IK that just allows me to, just like I was moving this joint, really. But we're going to use that to parent this joint, because this one we want to be able to control everything. So selecting things is going to get a little tricky in a minute, but I want to rename this first before I go any farther. So this is leg F that I'm working on. So I'm going to rename this reverse foot joint system accordingly. So this will be called, I'll call this RF F, and I'll call this one toe. So this is, let me just move this over a bit. So this is the bottom one here, so that's toe, and then this one I'll call RF F, so reverse foot F, ankle. And I'm going to take both of these and snap them so they're sitting right on top of the original leg foot here. So let's hold down X, snap it over here. And now before I do anything else, I want to duplicate this so I have one for each foot. So let's just look in the perspective view here. So you can see it's like a little boot sitting on top of its foot here. So we'll do the same thing as before. I'll just select this, and if I group it with itself, just briefly, it will put its pivot point at the middle, and I can use the duplicate special again. And I guess I reset my settings, so it's rotating 60 degrees around Y, and we need 5 copies. Did that work? Where did they go? Oh yeah, it worked. It's just not, for some reason, my computer is not showing the children selected, like we were saying earlier. I must have a setting changed. So again, I'll just ungroup all of these now. So now you can see they're all in place. I've got to rename them, so just give me a second to do that. So this is leg E. So I'll just change this to E underscore, and I can get rid of the numbers at the end.
So you created a normal joint first for the foot, and then you made an IK on top of that.
So if we just forget about the reverse foot here for a moment, these little boots that I'm making, for each one of these joints from the original skeleton, from the ankle to the toe, I'm making another IK going from the ankle just to the toe. And we're going to use those to, we're going to make those IK handles children of these new reverse foot joints.
So they're separate. The new little foot joint.
They are separate. Yeah, that's right. That's a good question. Yeah. So they're not part of the same joint system. They're just sitting on the same space. Let me just rename these quickly. This is leg A. My leg ordering got all out of whack for some reason. It's my leg B. And you know when you're in the window and you want to go right to something you have selected, you can hit F and your view will jump to that, so it frames that. That also works here in the outliner. If you hit F, it will take you to the thing you've selected, which is handy. So just bear with me for a sec while I get this done. Well, that one's named properly. Okay, so it looks like we're good here. So I just made all these little reverse feet, but I don't want to select them right now. I still have to go around and make those IKs. So again, the best thing to do here is to use our display layers. So I'll select all my little reverse feet, and I'll make a display layer for them and just call that reverse feet. And just turn that off temporarily. Are we all okay? Okay, so I'm just going to I'll show you the IK creation again for the foot. Not for the reverse foot, but for the end of our original leg. So I've already created this one, and this was for leg F. So this IK that I just created, I'll call IK F foot. So I get messed up. And I'll go through and do that the same thing for each one of these feet. The feet, not the reverse feet. So skeleton, create IK. So let's figure out what leg this is. This is leg E. E. Hit Y to do the same thing again. And this is leg A. Mm-hmm.
Have you
Say it again.
Have you put the point of an object again? Because when I'm trying to rotate them around, it's just going in a circle instead of where the feet are.
Or rotate what around?
Sorry, the reverse foot. When I'm trying to duplicate special,
Oh,
it's going around instead. So I'm assuming I need to move the pivot.
yeah. So to do that, so I put the reverse foot in place, so it's superimposed over the foot. But then I group it just with itself.
Oh, good.
So select the root node of the reverse foot, group it with itself, and then that group will have its pivot point in the middle of the world. Then you duplicate special that group, and it will rotate about that pivot point, and then you can just ungroup all the newly created things.
So to group it with itself, you press
G, just G.
Oh, just G.
Yeah, sorry.
G did not group its
Oh, is it Command G? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. G is perform the same action again. I was just thinking of that. Command G on the Mac, Control Z, Control G on the PC. Yep. Yep. It's very important when you're setting up any kind of rig like this that at the beginning stages everything is set up exactly where you need it. Otherwise, things will get messed up later on. Which is why I'm working sort of by snapping things into place so I know they're exactly superimposed. Yeah, hide the reverse feet because we want to put the IK on the foot from the ankle to the toe. Are you working in the perspective view or an orthographic view? Well, so the first one I did was like this one here that was right on one of these middle lines of the origin of the world, right? So that I could grid snap to using X. This one here is not in the middle of the world because I duplicated it around, so this is not a good one to start from. That's why I selected one that was here in the midline. I got two that are like that. And then when I rotate around by duplicating special, they'll go to the right spots, but you always want to start in an area where you've got a good place to begin from. Let me just finish this. Select D. Oops. Okay? So now, still things are just like before. We haven't connected anything yet. We just put an extra IK in there. And what we're using that IK for, that's connecting the ankle to the toe of the original leg, is to connect the reverse feet to the leg. And it's these reverse feet that we'll use to move things around. So let me just show you what we're doing here for this. So let's take, this is reverse foot B. Then I've got IKB here, that's the ankle IK. I think. Yeah, and then I've got IKB foot. That's the one going from the ankle to the toe. So I want to make IKB foot the child of reverse foot B toe. So they're sitting in the same spot right now. So if I select the IKB foot, you can see it's right here. And then reverse foot B toe is right in the same spot. So if I just make that a child by middle mouse dragging IKB foot onto toe, RFB toe, moves it down there. And then I want to do the same thing with IKB, that's the ankle one. I want to make that a child of reverse foot B ankle. So now, if I grab the root joint, you can see that one stays locked in place now because it's parented to that little reverse foot. So let me show you on another one so you can see that again. The benefit of this thing, there's a billion legs. So this is leg C. So we want to find reverse foot C here and open it up. Let me make the view in a little bit closer. So I want to make IKC foot a child of reverse foot C toe. And then I want to make IKC, which is at the ankle, a child of reverse foot C ankle. And I'm just middle mouse dragging from one onto the other. Bless you. And I'll carry on and do that for each one. So this is D. I don't really even have to select anymore because I've named everything appropriately. I should just be able to go in and look at my reverse feet and take the IKD foot, should be a child of reverse foot D toe. IKD should be a child of reverse foot D ankle. D ankle. So I haven't done B. Oh no, I did do B. Did I do B? Yep, I did B. So I still have to do A. So you can see why naming things as you go along becomes increasingly important when you're dealing with multiples of very similar things or exactly similar things. And it should save as you go along. If it crashed now, I'd be very upset. And so if you just look up here, now when I grab the root joint, we get the kind of action that we want with the injection of the body going down to push against the cell membrane. And then the thing we're not going to do here is that the neck would compress, twist and compress to push out the injector apparatus. Any problems I can help with?
What is the little effector thing that appears? I don't think I made it myself.
Yeah, so the effector indicates where the IKs are attached to, so you don't have to do anything with those. They should be attached to the correct joint that you initially attached the IKs to.
Well, I was trying to correct the unsnap stuff, but it's duplicated the same effector, so I should delete those.
Yeah, so yeah, if you have to only do all this IK stuff after everything's in the correct position, otherwise they're not starting from the same position.
Just a question that's
Yep.
not related to body force or not, but what was the point of making the reverse foot like as a joint instead of the object that
So the point of doing it is actually something we're not going to get into now, but when you do a reverse foot for a human figure, what it allows you to do by having another joint system. So you would put, in your leg joint going down from hip to knee, ankle to ball to toe, and then the reverse foot would go from toe to ball to ankle. Actually, it goes from heel to toe to ball to ankle, and so it gives you pivot points going in the opposite direction. So if I want to bend the foot on the ball but have the toe stay in place, you have a joint system traveling in the opposite direction that allows those pivots to happen. What I would normally do with something like this bacteriophage is that I want to be able to pivot and control the roll on the toe. So if I want the toe to turn out, then I could make a little attribute for doing that. So you could do all of this. You could do all of this without the joint system. You could do it with objects that were connected together. But the joint system just has a visual representation of these connections, so that's the reason we do it. Yeah?
I feel like I missed a step somewhere. What's the IK foot versus just the normal IK?
So the normal IK goes from the hip, this line here, down to the ankle. And then the IK foot goes from the ankle to the toe. So still on the leg model, not the reverse feet. So if I just hide the reverse feet, the IK foot goes from here to here.
I didn't read it, that's fine.
Ah, okay. And the reason you can't see them now is because they're children of the reverse foot. So when I hide the reverse feet, it actually hides the IK as well. Okay, so if you maybe just pay attention to this part now and just stop for a sec so I can carry on. There's just a couple more steps for the feet. So one of the things you always want to do with the rig is to control your options for animation. So there are still a lot of things to select here. I can select joints, I can select IK, but really the only thing I want to be able to do is to grab a foot and move it and have the leg follow. So we would normally create a bunch of control objects as curves or non-renderable objects. So in this case, I'm going to create a NURBS circle, and it'll be here in the center of the world. And I'm going to grab this and move it out to where one of the feet is. And again, I'm using one that's right on one of the main midline axes here. So I can hold down X, select the object, select the middle square, then hold down X, and middle mouse. Oh. When did I save?
Oh no.
I'm pretty sure I saved after all that. Did I? Let's see. We'll find out. Oops. Okay, phew. Looks like I've got all those things parented. Good. Yeah, okay. So, again, let me just create another NURB circle. Scale it down a bit. Hold down X and snap it over here. So I'm going to make a little controller that it's going to be an easy to select object around each of the feet. And so I've got one here, and I'll just duplicate this. I'll group it with itself to put its axis in the middle again, and do the duplicate special. All the same settings as before. So now I've got one around each foot. Save. And then just ungroup these. What's the shortcut for that? I don't know. Ungroup. Doesn't have one. Okay. So now I would just take a second to name these appropriately to make sure I've got the right one selected. So this is leg B, so I'll call this simply B. And then anything that's a control object I usually name with a CTRL at the end, just to make it easier to know. This is leg C, so this will be C control. So once I have everything set up correctly, which I think I do right now, I don't ever want to have to select those joints or IKs anymore. I just want to be able to select these control objects and use those to move things around. So essentially I want to make these children, these reverse feet, children of these control objects, or I can use constraints to do it. In this case I'm going to use constraints. So when you use a constraint, it's the constrained object. The follower is the one you always select last. So if I select a control curve, actually I'm going to delete the history of these things and freeze their transformations first, just so they're at 0, 0, 0 where they start. So if I select a control and then command select reverse foot a toe and go to constraint, I can just make a parent constraint for that. So now if I select this joint, this control object, then the leg will follow. And I'll do that for each one. So B control to reverse foot B toe. Oops. B control to reverse foot B toe. And if I just hit G, it will parent constraint again. So C control to reverse foot C toe, hit G, D, D, oops. E, E, F to F, and I think that's it. Let's see. So now we've got this thing where we can move the root joint and the hips will deform, or will bend, sorry. Then we can select these things to move the legs around. And because I zeroed their transformations, if I move the leg up here, if I wanted to go back to 0, I can just type in zeros and it's translate, and it will pop back to where it was. And I can rotate this too because I did a parent constraint which controls rotation and translation. So I'm going to make one more control object for the root here. I'll just create another circle for that. Can make it a slightly different shape just by deforming it a bit. And I can snap that to this root joint here. I'll just go into one of my orthographic views, hold down X, middle mouse click. It should jump. Did not. I'll just move it into place. We want it to be on the same position as that root joint because we're going to use this to rotate, and so we want the rotation pivot point to be in the same spot. So I can snap it to it. And I'll just do the same thing. I'll make a parent constraint. Oh, let me delete the history. And I'll call this root control. And there's my root, and there's my root control. So I'll select root control, command select in the outliner root joint, and do a parent constraint. So now I can just select this curve, and I can rotate it around. I can move it around. And now I can even just select off joint selection, geometry selection, IK selection. So I can't select anything except for curves now. So you're making something for animator U. You are being rigger U now, preparing this for animator U later. So you want to make sure that animator U knows just to select these curves to move things around. Save, yep.
What's the point of making that nerve circle like the weird shape?
Well, just because in a rig, say you're doing a human and you might have a control around the wrist to move the arm around, but you might have another one in the same spot that separates out your finger controls, and it's just kind of practice to make different shapes to know what they are in the scene. Because later on I'm going to create one more node called the God node, which is a big circle or something that everything is a child of. And then if you want to just pick this thing up and move it in the world, you just select God node and you move it there. No offense to anybody, I'm sorry. That's just what we call it. Deity, Greek deity node. It makes you more comfortable. All powerful. Okay, so let me just do the last thing for rigging the neck, just to make it kind of interesting. And there's a couple parts with this I don't remember exactly, so this will be interesting. So remember we did this before. We created a dynamic curve and we used it to rig something too. And we're going to do just the same thing here. What I can't remember, and what gets tricky with these rigs, is what gets parented to what and able to move everything around. So we'll just try it. Save my file, of course. So just like before when we were creating dynamic curves, you want to create curves in the orthographic view. So I'll just go to my Create Curve Tools and I'll create a CV curve tool. And I'm just going to snap a CV wherever there's a joint in the neck, not including the root, just the neck joints. They're all on the grid line, so I can just use my grid snap, which is X. C is curve snap, and V is vertex snap. So you could use vertex snap, it will jump to the middle of the joint too. But since I planned this just to be on the grid lines, it's better. And the reason that it's better to use the grid lines is because there are actually, there are vertices in this piece of geometry here too, and Maya might mistake what you're selecting when you do a vertex snap. So using a grid snap, I can just go click, click. And hit return, and now there's a curve in there. Can't see it, but there is. I have to turn on my curve selection is on.
How'd you make the cylinder transparent?
Like it is now, just 4 on the keyboard is wireframe mode.
I mean, I can't see the joints through it.
Oh, I'm sorry. In shading mode, in the window menus under shading, go to X-ray joints. So when you're in shaded mode, joints will show through geometry. You have to do that in every window, so it's a window by window, or a panel by panel setting. So a new curve has been created here, and I'll call this neck spline or something. It deletes history, freezes transformations, blah, blah, blah. So now remember, if we wanted to make an IK spline controller, we can just select this curve. And don't do this if you're at this stage, but I'll just show you. If I go to, because we're going to do something a little different, to Skeleton, create IK spline handle tool. We don't want to auto-create the curve because we've created our own curve here. So I can just select the bottom of the neck, the top of the neck, and then I want to select the spline. Oh. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. I'm going to hide all for a second, then just show NURBS curve so I can select that curve. So a new IK handle was created using that curve. I think.
You said not to do that? Or should we?
No, I'm just showing you how it works with a regular curve. We're going to first make it dynamic and then do this same thing. Let me just select. So it makes that curve a child of this joint system. So if I select CVs, now you can control the neck like this, right? Because that's what we did last week. But we're going to first make this curve dynamic and then do the same thing. So I've got the neck spline curve selected and it's in here inside the neck. And we're going to go to N hair and make selected curves dynamic. I'm going to open up the options because I want to make sure the defaults will be, the defaults are good actually. We just wanted to create a NURBS curve out of that curve, but a dynamic one. So So when I do that, a whole bunch of things are introduced into the scene here. So you can see the hair system, the nucleus node, follicle, output curves. So I'm just going to play the animation a little bit so we can see what happens. Nothing should happen. But if we go into the hair system follicles, and again, this is something we did before, but if we select the follicles, it's a single follicle for this hair. It's point locked at both ends, and we only want it to lock at the base, and that's down here. So now if we play the animation, still nothing should happen because gravity is acting on it, but it's straight up and down, so we can't see anything happening. So we go to the hair system, and we can just turn on a little bit of turbulence so we can get that hair moving around. So there you can see it moving about. So this is the one I'm going to use for that IK spline. So it's good to get it moved away from the middle here so it's easy to select. So let me create the IK spline again, now using this one. So again, if I go to skeleton, create IK spline handle, and again I just want to make sure auto create curve is turned off. I'm going to select the bottom of the neck, the top of the neck, and then this curve. And it will pop over.
Can you do that one more time?
Yes, ma'am. So first I'm going to play out the animation a bit. So, oh, I think I undid too much. I'm turning up the turbulence on that curve, so it comes out. So it's easy to select. So leaving the timeline there, I'll just go to skeleton, create IK spline handle, make sure auto create curve is turned off, and then just select the bottom of the neck here, top of the neck. Oh, didn't work, that first selection. Bottom, the top, and then curve. Did not work. Let me try that again. I think I got my selection order out of whack. So the bottom, top, and then it should pop to the position of that curve. Whoa! So now this, you only want to do this if you're happy with giving up some control of this thing. But because it is a dynamic object, we can change things like that turbulence. But the other thing that will happen, because it's dynamic, if you actually animate this whole rig moving, and it's moving like this, the head will trail back a little bit, and then when it stops, it will kind of woggle around a little. So here's the question I'm asking myself, even as we speak. What do I parent to what to get all that stuff to move around? And the answer is, I'm not sure. So let me see. I'm going to make a god node, a Greek deity node. Let's call him Zeus. So I'll just create another big circle. I'll just leave it on the floor here. And I'll delete its history, freeze transformations. And so what do I have to parent to this thing? Well, I'm pretty sure if I grab all of these joints, sorry, these control circles, and make them a child of Zeus. If I select Zeus now, okay, so it moves, but it leaves this curve behind. And that's perfectly fine. I can't believe I got it on the first try. So it looks like, oh, well, there you go. There's your problem. So much for that. I'm going to have to figure this out and come. Oh, great. Its head has left. the party. Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Okay, I'm gonna have to remember how to do that. I forget. The tricky part is that you have this output curve that's connected to this follicle. So you've got this neck spline curve, and then you've got these output curves. But you can see that output curve is no longer here anymore, because it's now a child of this joint system when I made it the IK spline. So it should follow along. I don't know why the head is doing this. This is bizarre. But it should follow along, and then everything should still work. You can still... Oh, there you go. Just some voodoo going on. Oh, I undid back of that. That's why. Oh yes, there's some funny business going on. It keeps wanting to give up. Oh, see, it keeps popping. I think it has to do with the fact that I made this a constraint to the head rather than making it a child of that. So I'm going to try and fix that just by going to the head geo, getting rid of that parent constraint that I made so long ago, and just selecting the head and making it a child of that top level joint. So that's neck joint 5, so I'm just going to make the head a child of that. Maybe that's more reliable. So let me just save this and try that one last time. And this is one of the reasons it's also difficult to duplicate a rigged object, and why I recommend saving a build file with one bacteriophage, and if you need more than one in your shot, importing the whole thing in, because it preserves all the relationships. So let me just call this Zeus again. History, freeze transformations, and I'm going to make all those controllers a child of Zeus. And again, I don't know if this is going to cause problems. Oops. My middle mousing is messing up here. So now if I select Zeus, and rotate into a strange position, let's see if the animation still works. Okay, seems to. And because Zeus was zeroed out, I can just go into all its translation rotation notes and it goes back to the beginning. So if I had to move this to somewhere in the world, I can just select the Zeus node and move it to wherever it needs to be, and the animation should still work. And if I needed to animate this flying through the air, then it's this Zeus node that I would animate to do that. So that's not uncommon with any type of rigging, is that you'll have this sort of overarching node that has all the other controllers parented to it, so you select it and then you can move everything at once. So it's 12:30 now. I can publish these. Let me just stop this.